Moving on now, in his sharpest ever attack yet on the Western media, National Security Advisor Ajit Doval challenged foreign press to show proof of any kind of damage on the Indian side during Operation Sindoor. Foreign media's biased coverage and attempts to undermine India's military success has been called out by none other than India's top security strategist. His wasn't just a retort, it was a strategic dressing down of global disinformation. Remember, after May 10th strike, Western platforms ran stories that favored Pakistan's narrative. They said India exaggerated the strike, that there was little confirmation of the damage done. They tried to highlight Pakistan's false flag claims. But now NSA Doval has flipped that script with undisputed facts, with before and after images that the Western media itself showed after Operation Sindoor. Here's what he said.
We have to develop our indigenous technology. Mention was made here of Sindoor. We are really proud of it, not for necessarily what people perceive. That how much of an indigenous content was there. We are proud of it, that some of the best systems that worked. We decided to have 9 terrorist targets in the crisscross of Pakistan. It was not on the border area or something. We missed none. It was precise to the point where we knew who is where. Entire operation was started at 5 minutes past 1 and was over at 28 minutes past 1.
So NSA Ajit Doval has called out the hypocrisy and the false narrative that was being peddled in favor of Pakistan by the Western media. He says while India hit 9 terror targets and there are before and after images to prove India's claims of the damage that was done on the Pakistani side, there is not a single proof, and the Western media should put out proof to corroborate the claims that they are making of damage inflicted on the Indian side. There is not one proof, not single proof of any damage to the Indian side. Let's go across to Sindoor Chaudhary, who's joining us on the broadcast with more details. A very, very strong message coming in from the NSA calling out the hypocrisy of not just the Western media, but all the doubters, isn't it, here in India as well?
Yes, there has been no damage. There was a lot of attacks, not just across the line of control, but across the border, right down to Rajasthan. But luckily, the Indian defensive positions, the Akash, the others, the guns, the anti-aircraft guns, the anti-drone guns, all of them worked rather well. And as a result, all those attacks were repelled. So what the National Security Advisor Ajit Doval is saying is right, that there has been no damage to Indian installations, military or civil, on the Indian side. On the other hand, we have seen the damage that was caused by the BrahMos missile and other weaponry that was used by the Indian side, and very clearly that damage is now visible for the whole world to see. But on the Indian side, there has been no damage because all those attacks were repelled. A very clear statement by the National Security Advisor.
Absolutely. So just stay on with us. Let's break down the details of the statement that has been given by the National Security Advisor and the challenge that he has posed to the Western media. Let's in fact take a look and break down the details on the big screen of the challenge that has been posed by National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. He says that the foreign press said Pakistan did this, Pakistan did that. So the point essentially that he's trying to make is that the Western media was biased in its coverage and the narrative that they peddled favored Pakistan. Now he has asked the Western media to prove their claims that there was damage inflicted on the Indian side. He has challenged the Western media to provide even one proof, single proof of the claims that they are making. Show me one photograph or one image, he says, that can prove that there was any sort of damage that was done on the Indian side. Well, of course, 9 terror targets were hit, and not just that. When Pakistan tried to engage our military, their military installations were also struck by the Indian missiles. Ajit Doval says, show damage to any Indian structure. Can the Western media provide any proof? Can Pakistan give any proof? Prove if even a glass pane was broken on the Indian side. Any damage to Indian structure should be proved. Now, he's of course constantly calling out the hypocrisy of Western media. And this message wasn't just for Pakistan and the biased Western media. It was also for the Saboot gang. which didn't think twice before questioning the valor of our forces. It was leader of opposition, remember, Rahul Gandhi, who asked how many aircrafts did we lose? A question that the BJP said echoed Pakistan's narrative, because all these statements that were being made by the opposition leaders here in India were being picked up by Pakistani media, and they were being reiterated by the Pakistani leaders. Let's take you through some of the statements that were made, not just by Rahul Gandhi, but then by other leaders in the Congress and other political parties as well. Not just statements, these in fact were insults that were hurled at the valor and courage of our forces. How many aircrafts did we lose? That's what Rahul Gandhi asked. Then you had Revanth Reddy of the Congress party, the Telangana chief minister. He said, how many Rafales destroyed? The government should answer that. Pawan Kheda of the Congress said Jai Shankar, the external affairs minister, acted like an informant. Mukhbiri kiya. That's what his charge was. Mallikarjun Kharge, the Congress chief, said Operation Sindoor is just a chut-put war. It's a small incident that has happened. And then you had Ajay Rai again of the Congress, the UP Congress chief, remember, who came out with a toy plane in his hand with a Nimbu Mirchi attached to it and mocked Rafale. He showed this Rafale toy with Nimbu Mirchi. And then you had Vijay Wadettiwar, again a Congress leader. He said there are talks that we lost 3-4 Rafales. All these statements that were given by these leaders, especially those from the Congress, were picked up by the Pakistani media, were picked up by the Pakistani leaders to set their agenda, to set their narrative. The narrative that was later, of course, picked up by the Western media as well. Now, we have some breaking inputs coming in. Let's break down the details. Top sources have told Times Now how Pak troops are moving back from LOC. Pressure works. Pak bows down. Let's, in fact, go across to Srinjoy, is getting us more details on this. The inside scoop on the movement of Pak troops. Srinjoy, if you can elaborate.
Yes. What happened those 4 days of Operation Sindoor was primarily an air war, in a sense that it was about missiles, it was about drones, and a little bit about aircraft. But the Pakistanis also moved troops towards the LOC and the IB, the international border. Roughly a third of their troops were moved, not a huge amount, but about a third. Though it must be said that their two tank corps, their strike corps, 1 and 2, did not move. Nevertheless, after those 4 days of fighting, the Pakistani DGMO called Lieutenant General Rajiv Ghai and said, shall we have a ceasefire? So India has struck a hard bargain. The point that has to be made here is that all those troops that were close to the LOC and IB were moved back in a orderly manner. So the Pakistanis have moved back troops. They have gone off. They are now at those troops that were so close. They are now at the Shakargarh bunch. They are also south of Lahore. They are in the Multan area, and they are in the desert sector, away from the IB. So that is what we are hearing. Yes, there was pressure, and yes, at that point, both sides talked, and India made it very clear that the Pakistani army should be nowhere near the LOC, nowhere near the IB, and that's where it is now.
Absolutely. So we're breaking down details of what transpired during Operation Sindoor, the kind of pressure that India was able to mount on Pakistan. Srinjoy, there was no Pakistan army tank movement that was detected. And after suffering from the damage that India inflicted on the Pakistani side, you had the DGMOs calling. You had the DGMO, the Pakistani establishment, the military, pleading for a ceasefire arrangement.
Yes, as I mentioned, on the 4th day, the 9th, there was a call from the Pakistani DGMO, and the tone was distinctly different from the first conversation that India and Pakistan and the two DGMOs had. At that time, on the 7th, when General Ghai called his counterpart, the reply was, the world will see what we will do now. This was after he was told that, look, we have struck but only the terror camps. But after the 4 days of fighting, after the pummeling that Pakistani military installations got, and we have seen those pictures, the damage that the BrahMos missiles did on the other side, then the call was very simple. Let's have a ceasefire. And India agreed to that ceasefire. At that point, This was, of course, after consultations with the military top brass and the political establishment. Everyone agreed that, yes, there would be a ceasefire. But it was also important to ensure that the Pakistani army forces that were close to the LOC and also the IB moved back. And as you can see, they have moved back to the positions they have. They are near Shakargaj, 3 or 4 areas, near south of Lahore, in the Multan area, and also in the desert sector. So that's where they are now, not as close in any dangerous manner.
Absolutely. Now, Sindoor, this was a decision, what would you say, based on your experience? Was this decision taken by the forces, the Pakistani forces on ground, or, followed directions that came from top, understanding fully well that India is not going to stop now?
Naturally, this decision was taken at the highest level of the Pakistani military. They realized that the game was up and it was important to move back, and which is exactly what happened. And at this point, we know that after those hard-nosed discussions from the Indian side, we made it very clear that they had to move back, and they have. That's really the point.
Absolutely. So we are breaking down the details of what transpired during Operation Sindoor, during the 4-day crisis. No Pakistani army tank movement was detected. The 2 strike corps, 1 and 2 at Mangla and Multan, did not move at all, nor did the Indian armored formations of similar caliber. Apart from that, Pakistan had pushed forward a bit more than a third of its forces. Indian military strength on the ground aimed to check any ground movement, but there was none. So the pressure was constantly mounting and Pakistani forces retreated. Thank you very much, Sindoor, for getting us the details. Quick break with that.